eBay, get live. So in this final lesson, we want to cover grappling, some additional things in grappling, and specifically, we've been doing mostly stand-up grappling, although we did discuss how to defend takedowns with the sprawl. But what happens if you are taken down, and how do you deal with that? And so we want to give you some tools and things to think about in terms of ground fighting, and again, getting back to your feet. That's always our goal in Jeet Kune Do. So we're going to be utilizing the grappling dummy here. If you have a grappling dummy or a partner, this would be the time to grab that or that individual. So what we want to first work on are just different positions, and this guy's pretty heavy actually. We put a bunch of weight in him to simulate a real human being. What we want to work on first are just the positions that we utilize in grappling. And in Jeet Kune Do, we don't have specific, hey, this is a Jeet Kune Do grappling position. So we do utilize the positions that you'll find very common in many grappling arts, whether it's jiu-jitsu or wrestling or judo and things like that. So I just want to show you some of those positions and give you a framework from which to think about it. So again, it's important to me to distinguish between, hey, this is Jeet Kune Do and this is not Jeet Kune Do. So in this lesson, what we're talking about is grappling arts just in general. But the terminology that we're going to use are not necessarily Jeet Kune Do terms. So we're going to use terms like the guard, the mount, the half guard, side control, things like that. Those aren't necessarily exclusive, or they're not really Jeet Kune Do terms at all. But Jeet Kune Do does deal with getting back to your feet, and it's about, hey, how do we get back up and how do we defend ourselves in all ranges of combat? So the first one we want to focus on here is just, when your opponent's directly above you. Now, previously we talked about stand-up grappling from 6 points of reference, depending on in relation to where your hands are. The same thing applies when you're on the ground, except it's more so with the legs. So for example, with my feet here, position 1, I may have both legs on this side of my opponent, which in this case is on his right side. Okay, position number 2, I may have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Position number 3, I may have both feet in. Position number 4, I may have, again, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Position number 5, both feet are out on his left side. Position number 6, I've got both feet on either side. It's the same concept that we applied standing. We're going to apply the same concept here on the ground. Now, what you'll find is that it doesn't matter so much where you are in this matrix here that we're talking about. So for example, if I am here where I got both feet in position 1 on the side of my opponent, okay, I can be in many positions here. I could be standing on top of him, right? So if you're on the ground, I could be standing here and maybe trying to stomp you, or maybe I'm trying to come down and punch you or kick you, or whatever the case is. I can, you can be in this position, okay? You do want to avoid your opponent being outside of the matrix here and being up here towards your head, right? Where they're now giving you soccer kicks in the head. You do want to avoid that position, okay? That's outside of the matrix here. You don't want to be there where they're stomping you in the head and kicking you towards the head. So try to keep your opponent, as we discussed previously, down towards your legs. You want to keep him in front of you. But if he's in front of you, we've got these 6 points frame of references. So whether I'm here and I'm standing doing this is fine. Whether I have one knee down and I'm doing this, it's the same concept. Maybe I have one knee on top of him and I'm doing this. Either way, my body is on this side of him, no matter where I'm at. And I've got a hand on him. I'm here. As you notice, now we're getting into levels of control, okay? I have this level of control where now I have no contact really with him in terms of controlling his structure or posture. But then as I get closer, right, I may put a knee down. I may put a hand down. I have more control here, okay, as I come further down. This also leads us into what we call side control, where now I'm able to control my opponent directly on their side here, no matter what position I'm in. This is more your side control here. So I can control him right here on the side and throw my elbows or hammer fists or seek for a takedown, try to isolate an arm. For a we call it a submission, but it's not really in street self-defense, right? I mean, they're gonna break something, okay? So I can go for those breaks and those holds and things like that. So it leads us into more of this side control. So this is the first position we want to cover, really, is this side control from these 6 points of contact here. So I'm in this position. There's many ways to do this kind of side control position where you're on top, but you have a good amount of control here on your opponent. You can land some shots, do some damage. I can be here where I'm on the hip. I can be, Conversely, I can be on my knees here and same kind of thing. And I'm trying to stay low so I can kind of visualize, see you guys in the camera here. But I can be right here. I can be in any number of positions here and control my opponent here in side control. Same thing, I can side control him from here as well. Okay, so that's controlling him on the side. The same thing is going to apply if I'm on his left side. Same position, right? Position number 2 we mentioned was having one leg in. So if I've got one leg in, one leg out, I'm here. Same thing, whether I'm stomping him in the groin, right? Kicking him in the body. Maybe he's kicking me in the groin too. I don't know. Maybe I'm coming down to punch him in the face. Okay, so this is the position number 2. Same principles. I can be down on a knee here. I can put knee on belly. I can come here. I can switch. My other knee may be down. I can here. Again, more control. And then I can be fully here, which we end up calling this more of a half guard because I got one leg in, one leg out. When we're in this position, oftentimes he should be, if he's a good grappler, he's going to try to control my leg with his opposite leg and put his leg on top of mine to keep this leg in position from me getting to a full mount, where we'll cover that in a little bit later, where I have both legs on either side. So this is a position, it's a very bad position to be in for your opponent, okay? He does have a little bit more control over you than if you were in side control. In side control, you have more control if you're on top. Here, he has a little bit more control over my posture. He's controlling my leg a little bit more and controlling a little bit more my center line. Next position, I'm not going to start standing. You guys get the principles. If I'm on the inside, I can stand. I can come down to one knee. I can come down to both knees, okay? So we're just going to, kind of stay here nice and low. From this position here, we would typically call this a guard position, meaning that my opponent has his legs on the outside of my hip. I'm still in top position. I might be throwing punches down here. He might be shooting his legs up, trying to get some kind of hold or choke or something like that, a triangle or arm bar, whatever it is he's trying to do. But I've got this position as well. It's another position from which you can defend yourself. This is a better position for him because it gives him a little bit more control over my structure and more control over my center line. So that's why if you're on the bottom, that's why this is a better position for you to be in if you have to be on the bottom, okay, if you don't have a choice. But guard is the best position to be in. Half guard is second, the one we just covered. You don't want to be in any kind of mount, which is the first one we did was a side mount or side control, okay? And you certainly don't want to be in the full mount, which is the next one. So this is here, this is guard. The other ones we cover on the other side, we've already done, where I've got one in, one out. We've already covered this one as the half guard, and then where we were in side control here, where both legs on the other side, we did this on the other side there. Last one here, position number 6, is just now I'm in full mount, whether I'm here on top of my feet, or whether I got one knee down, or both knees down, or I'm, sitting on my opponent's hips here. Either way, I've got this kind of full mount control here on my opponent. It's the worst position you typically can be in because now your opponent on top is controlling your hips. If you're on the bottom, it's controlling your hips, and he's raining down punches, and it's very hard to get up from this position, in general. So these are some of your basic positions you tend to find yourself in. Now what we want to cover are some ways to get up if you find yourself in these down positions. So we're going to switch positions here, and the first thing I'm going to start with actually is going to be the guard position. So we're going to kind of roll over into the guard position here. Again, this guy is pretty heavy, but we're going to roll him over into the guard position here and cover what to do if you find yourself in the position here where you're on your back in the guard. Now, the first thing I'm typically going to do when I find myself here on my back is I'm going to close my guard, meaning that I'm going to wrap my ankles together around, my opponent's back or waist, wherever they happen to be. So I like to start in a closed guard to prevent him from escaping my guard and getting to a more dominant position, whether it's a half guard or side control or full mount. So I like to control here with the guard initially to start with. So there's a few things you can do from here. Just everything depends on your opponent's energy. Just like in our trapping, it depends on where his energy is and where his body's going. Right now, his energy is pretty much laying directly on top of me. Now, notice his head is over here towards my right side. His head's over towards my right side. That's generally where I want my opponent to go. And that's typically where I'm going to send my opponent. So his head's being on on my right side here. I'm going to try to swim him over to that side, okay? Again, this is always easier said than done, but there's a few ways to do this. My preferable way to do this is to sweep him, to sweep my opponent. So what I'm going to do from my open guard position here, I'm going to go ahead and take one foot down, okay, out to the side. This is the foot I'm going to use to kind of sweep my opponent here, scissor him, right? It's a scissor sweep, okay? I'm gonna sweep him here, okay? The other thing I wanna do is I wanna try to get my hip out on the other side because this leg is over here. I wanna try to get my hip to go this way and I want my opponent to go the other way. So as I'm coming here, I may hip escape out here, which means I'm gonna send my hip out a little bit to come more at an angle to him. This gives me a better position from which to facilitate sweeping my opponent. And his weight and energy is down. So I'm gonna sweep with my legs, which means one leg is gonna go in, one leg is gonna go out here. As I do so, I'm also using my hands here, wherever your hands happen to be, but I'm gonna push one side and pull the other side, okay? Push and pull the other side. The pushing side, I can push here at the top, but I might have an underhook here and I can push same thing with an underhook here and then pull on this angle here as this leg goes forward and my bottom leg cuts into the wall here. And I'm just sweeping and pulling my opponent in this direction here to facilitate getting him, hopefully in that off position. So I'm just sweeping him here and you can rotate and get to that top position if you need to. But again, your goal is always going to be to escape. So if I show you this real quick without the dummy here, roll him over here again. A heavier dummy is always better than not so heavy dummy, okay? I just prefer that, right? So here I started out in the guard position here. I'm gonna open up my guard. I'm gonna go ahead and push off this foot to kind of hip escape here. This leg's gonna slide out and I'm scissoring, okay? I'm scissoring my feet here, scissoring. But as I do so, I'm gonna use also my hands and pull and push, right? Pull and push to send him over. And I'm gonna try to roll over as well with him and come on into that top position, okay? So that's one option to get your opponent off of you, okay? So some other things you can do, right? Let's say your opponent has you in a half guard position, right? So we just covered the full guard. Let's say we're in more of a half guard now. So I've got one leg in, one leg out. Now, first thing I want to do from this position, okay? Let's bring his head to the opposite side. A lot of times the guy's going to be laying cross body to you, okay? First thing I want to do from this position, again, it's not legal in jiu-jitsu and grappling, but I'm going to be striking to the groin here, okay? With the knee, with the thigh. I'm going to be striking right here to the groin. It's not going to feel good, okay? Hitting to the groin. Be mindful when you're in this position, he can do the same thing to you because he's got his leg on the inside. So I might use my opposite foot to control him here, to control his leg here as I hit to the groin with this foot, okay? So I'm going to use that to create some pain. The other thing that I'm going to do is, if he has hair, if he has an ear, okay, I'm going to be pulling on that hair or that ear, okay, to help myself to get up, okay? And typically I'm going to pull with whatever hand's closest, right? So if this hand's closest, I'm pulling on his hair and on his ear. And I want to pull him towards wherever his weight happens to be. If his weight is cross-body to me like this, the majority of his weight is going to be on my left shoulder here as he's trying to keep me down. And he's also trying to keep my hips down here. But I'm going to try to pull him this way. And I'm placing my hand on his hip here to help facilitate me getting up. And then I'm going to utilize the groin strikes here. But as I'm groin strike, I'm going to kind of bring my foot out here to, again, push my opponent off of me. He's going to run into the wall here, but I'm pushing him off of me in this direction here. And then I'm going to shrimp and slide out, okay, to get up and get back to my feet, all right? So we're going to show you the same thing in the opposite direction here, just so you guys can kind of visually see it and he's not running into the wall here. So we've got this angle here. He's got the half guard position. I've got one foot in, okay, and he's cross-body to me. Again, grabbing the hair here, striking to the groin. I'm using this foot to control him here. Boom, hitting to the groin, grabbing here. I'm using this hand to push up at the waist here. And once I'm here, this foot is here. I'm using that same kind of hip escape here. And I'm going to be pulling at his hair, at his ear, anything that I can to facilitate pushing him up and off of me here, okay? And then coming right back on top and throwing my shots, throwing my punches, and getting back to my feet to escape, okay? A little bit easier to show you from that angle because I can actually push him off towards there as opposed to him running into the wall, okay? So those are the things you can do from the guard, from the half guard. And last position we're gonna cover here is just what to do when they have a full mount on you, which is the worst possible position that you can be in. So let's bring our friend back over here, and let's say he's got full mount position on me here, and he's got one leg on either side of me here, okay? He's got one leg on either side of me here. Very, very bad position. So a few things you wanna do here, okay? What we're gonna do is something called bucking and bridging, okay? This is very common in many martial arts, okay? And grappling systems. So what I'm gonna do is take my feet are here. I'm gonna bring them close to my butt. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna buck. Bucking principle is real simple. I'm gonna raise my feet up and I'm gonna shoot him up so that my hips come up to raise my opponent. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create some distance and space and try to make it easier to move his body weight. It's easier to move body weight if the body weight is in the air versus flat on you, okay? So when I do this bucking, I'm gonna move his foot a little bit so you can see. When I do this bucking, what I'm gonna do is come up on my toes here to lift as high as I can. This should be explosive. In other words, it's not gonna be a simple pushing action here, okay? It's gonna be a very explosive movement here. Now, as I buck, that's gonna lift him up a little bit off the air, okay? Typically, he's gonna fall forward for the most part. However, what I wanna do is take advantage of that energy of him lifting up. I'm gonna take one hand, that's gonna pull him. The other hand is gonna be up at the shoulder. Again, you can still feel free to grab the hair to pull the hair and push up at the shoulder, okay, if he has hair. But if he doesn't, I may grab here at the tricep and at the shoulder here, okay, the opposite shoulder. So I'm on this shoulder and the tricep here, but I wanna send him this way. So I'm gonna pull this side and push on the other side as I buck. So I'm gonna buck, and as the lips come up, I'm bridging. Bridging means I'm coming up on the shoulder and I'm pushing him over to this side to come right back up, okay? Now, whether I can escape or whether I wanna stay down and, give him a few extra shots to take for his trouble, that's up to you. Whatever you have to do to, properly defend yourself and those around you to escape safely. But that's bucking and bridging. So just to show you that without the partner for a second here. So I'm here, I'm on my back, right? And again, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buck. This is the bucking action here. Bucking, I've already got the his tricep, and I'm pushing here at the hip. And then I'm bridging, which is coming up on this shoulder as much as I can. I'm bridging up and then coming over, okay, as I do so, okay, to get onto that top position and hopefully to escape. So just wanted to give you some down and dirty ways in which you can escape when you're on the ground. There are other ways to escape as well. There are other ways to get up from on the ground. And again, it depends on where your opponent's energy is. So sometimes your opponent's energy is forward, like we showed you in the guard. There's other ways to get up when your opponent's energy is forward. You don't have to do kind of that scissoring action, that scissoring sweep. And that scissoring sweep also works when their energy is up, when they're sitting upright as well. So there's so many different things you can do, so many different ways, but generally the principle is that it all depends on where your opponent energy is, okay? There's other concepts that we get to in more advanced training. We talk about shrimping. We talk a little bit about hip escapes and all those things too. We give you some additional ways to escape from the different positions, but I just wanted to give you just a few that you can try depending on where your opponent's energy is and where their body weight is. You always want to move their body weight to where their body weight already is. And you're not trying to lift, if the guy is really heavy on top of you, you're not trying to lift him all the way to the other side, okay? Wherever he's at, move him to that direction. And if he doesn't want to go to that direction, because he's already there, move him to the opposite direction as a feint, and then move him back. A lot of times guys will resist going one way, and you can tilt him back the other way. The last tip I want to give you, because I'm a small guy and we do a lot of grappling in our school. And again, I have to create these tricks of the trade to escape when bigger guys are on top. The last thing I'll tell you is that the best time to escape, to facilitate these escapes, is in your timing. So you do have to time these things properly. And the best time to facilitate an escape is when your opponent is moving. So in other words, if your opponent is already settled down on you and they have their full body weight on you, it's very hard to buck and bridge. It's very hard to scissor sweep. It's very hard to use your groin strikes and just to kind of lift and push them off of you, okay? All these things are very difficult when your opponent is settled and has their full weight on top of you. So ideally, in the scramble, as you're getting down to the ground, if you happen to be on your back or get down to your back, in that scramble, before your opponent gets settled, that's when you really want to buck bridge and facilitate your escape. You're not going to get a lot of opportunities to do that. Or if your opponent is raising up because they want to punch you or something like that, and he's trying to attack, or he's trying to go for a submission or a break or a choke, that's when you want to facilitate some of these escapes. Again, not so much when they just are sitting there with their full weight on top of you. So think about your timing, okay, as you work this. Again, there are many ways to do this, to escapes. These are just a few that I just wanted to give you here. Again, just with the grappling dummy, I do recommend if you don't have one, definitely invest in one. This one's like 100 pounds, so it's got a little bit of weight to it, and it's a little bit awkward to move around, okay? But it does simulate having, you know, an opponent on top of you who's going to have some weight that you'll have to deal with. So give these a shot. If you don't have a dummy or something, definitely still train these solo just so you can kind of visually be familiar with the movements. You should be doing some ground training anyway, just as you're on the ground, just moving around and trying to attack from the ground, right? You may not know the submissions, right, and things like that, but that's fine. Again, I use the term submissions because that's from the combat sports world, but when we're talking about self-defense, we're talking about something breaking or somebody getting choked or strangled, right? For the most part, in terms of self-defense techniques. We're not really trying to tap them out. We're not submitting them, quote unquote. So try to not think about it in that terms, but just dealing with combat sports, that's what it's oftentimes called. So anyway, that's the last step here. We just wanted to leave you with those tips just so you're not completely defenseless if you do find yourself on your back. eBay, get live.